Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing an absolutely cracked Fantasy Cup team that I created with the newly released Orthworm. I tested out Orthworm in yesterday's video, and felt that it was strong in the meta, but I wasn't really a big fan of the team that I used. Well, what a difference a day makes, because today's team absolutely shredded through the meta. This team features Togetic as the lead, Shadow, Waterfall, and Empoleon as the safe switch, and Orthworm as the closer, and this team helped me break 3200 ELO for the very first time this season. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we pick up the absolute best case scenario lead, Togetic into Shadow Flygon. My opponent safe switches into Azumarill, and I'm more than happy to respond with Shadow, Waterfall, and Empoleon. Even though Waterfall is resisted in this matchup, it does still add up quite a bit. My opponent CMP tied here after 6 bubbles, so this can only be a Play Rough. Play Rough, not really a move that Empoleon has to worry about. I know that my next Drill Peck will not take the knockout quite yet, so I'm planning on just shielding and then waterfalling them into a range where the Drill Peck will definitely take the KO. So I shield as they fire off the Play Rough, and then I farm all the way up to 100 energy. This poor Flygon, when they send it back in, is about to get absolutely destroyed by Hydro Cannon, and they have high incentive to not want to shield the Flygon because Flygon is completely walled by Togetic. So in comes the Flygon, sand attacks adding up, Hydro Cannon lands, I snipe down with Orthworm, ready to rock to whatever's in the back. In the back is Tinkaton, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We move to game number 2, picking up a pretty nice lead, leading Togetic into Togekiss. Now this matchup is pretty solid for the Togetic just because Togetic outbulks Togekiss. Togekiss obviously hits a lot harder, but the bulk on Togetic is undeniable. I'm expecting my opponent is going to try and go for a catch in this matchup, so I'm just going to keep farming and watch for it. There it is, they try for the catch on a Quagsire, and at this moment I realize I have accidentally queued into the Open Grey League. The Fantasy Cup is Dragon, Steel, and Fairy. There is no Quagsire allowed, so I have made a pretty massive mistake. My opponent CMP ties Aqua Tail to the Heat Wave. Heat Wave won't take the knockout, but it will help me set up a Waterfall farm down. Heat Wave will actually be shielded. I pivot into Empoleon, but I am very worried that my opponent is running Mud Bomb. Most Quagsires are running Mud Bomb in the Open Great League now, and Mud Bomb would shred my Empoleon. In comes Togekiss, they fire off the Aura Sphere, but I believe I should be able to get a full Waterfall down here. It's going to be close, Togekiss does not get a move, and that is very helpful. Now I have so much energy on the Empoleon, in comes the Quagsire, but I'm already doubled up, I'm in back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Quagsire shields, but there's more where that came from. Hydro Cannon number 2 will take the knockout. What could they possibly have in the back? I have a very healthy Empoleon. In the back is a Shadow Bug Bite Fortress, and let's send in Orthworm. Orthworm going to be resisting the bug bites. I will take super effective damage from Sand Tomb, but now I can lower their attack with Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will be hitting for big neutral damage onto the fortress. Orthworm just absolutely shutting it down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We queue into the right league in game number 3, leading Togetic into Turtonator. Turtonator is a scary Pokemon for this team to see, just because this team does not have a resistance to fire. We have 2 Pokemon that take neutral, and then Orthworm takes super effective. I'm going to anticipate that my opponent does full send the overheat, so I will put up the shield, and I'm rewarded as they full send. If they stay in this matchup, I will fire off the Dazzling Gleam. Even though they're very low, Heat Wave is double resisted, and I don't think it would be enough to secure the knockout. Dazzling Gleam lands, taking the KO, in comes Galarian Weezing, and I pivot out into the Shadow Waterfall Empoleon. Unfortunately, if this is an overheat, this will do insane damage, so I will put up the shield just to get baited with a Brutal Swing. My opponent sends in their final Pokemon, it's Azumarill. I'm down 2 shields to 0, but the thing I have going for me right now is I have 3 very healthy Pokemon. I'm just going to look to farm up as much energy as I can with the Empoleon, continuing to spam out these Drill Packs, trying to make life as difficult as possible for my opponent. They farm up to just shy of 100 energy, and that allows me to burn my Switch Timer and save the Empoleon. Hydro Pump is caught onto the Togetic. I still have a full health Orthworm in the back, and that is going to be an absolute nightmare for my opponent to get rid of. The fact that they throw Brutal Swing makes me think they're on Brutal Swing and Sludge, and with no overheat, there's really no hope against Orthworm. They will fire off the Brutal Swing and take the knockout, but now it's time, send in the Worm. In comes Orthworm, Mud Slaps adding up, getting closer and closer to Rock Tomb. Here's the moment of truth. Do they actually have the overheat? I'm pretty sure they don't, and they do not. They just have Brutal Swing. Now I can click Rock Tomb. This is going to debuff their attack. So if you thought the Brutal Swings didn't do a lot before, they're going to do even less now. And Orthworm just does such a good job of closing out games in this meta. We Mud Slap everything down and take another win. We move to the next game. Togetic, this time going to be greeted with a Morgrem. This is a dominant lead win. Morgrim can't really do anything here. My opponent safe switches into a Shadow Waterfall Empoleon, and I don't actually have a strong answer to this Pokemon. Orthworm doesn't do amazingly here, so what I end up doing is getting a shield with Heat Wave and then bringing in my own Empoleon. My Shadow Empoleon has terrible IVs. It is 14 attack. The advantage to having 14 attack, however, is the fact that I always win charge type priority in the Empoleon mirror, so I can very comfortably play to the CMP tie, and I'm able to take the knockout. In comes Morgrim. I'm going straight for the Hydro Cannon, and this Hydro Cannon is going to inflict deadly damage. Hydro Cannon lands, Morgrim barely hangs on, in comes Aegislash, answered with the Orthworm, and yet again, another opponent resigns the match. We're looking for the 5-0 in game number 5, and we pick up a pretty tough lead, leading Togetic into the Shadow Waterfall Empoleon. Hydro Cannon does hit very hard into this entire team. I fire off the Heat Wave, my opponent does not shield, and now I switch Empoleon into the mirror. Hydro Cannon is resisted here, but Shadow Empoleon is very, very frail. My opponent here makes a very nice play. They recognize that they can safely send in Giratina, take a Drill Peck, and get a huge farm down. This is really, really good energy management for my opponent, and it's going to make my life very, very tricky. I send back in the Togetic. Togetic will be hit with an Ancient Power that hits for big super effective damage, and I'm just looking for whatever damage I can get, so I fire off Heat Wave. Heat Wave will be shielded. I pivot into the Orthworm. They've shown Ancient Power, so the worst this should be is a Dragon Claw. So I'm going to save 2 shields for the Orthworm just for it to be an Ancient Power Shadow Sneak Giratina, and I'm going to lose with 2 shields. Oh no, I was not even considering that could be a moveset because normally Giratina always runs Dragon Claw, but the Ancient Power Shadow Sneak Giratina gets me good, and unfortunately, we're going to miss our 5-0, and we lose with both shields remaining. We move to set number 2, and we pick up a bit of a tricky lead, Togetic into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. This Sandslash is on Shadow Claw, which means, fortunately, this is actually a very good lead for Togetic. If they're on Powder Snow, then the fast move pressure really starts to add up. Even from a Shadow A-Slash, the Ice Punch will not take the knockout, and I will be able to make a second Heat Wave. I'm going to overfarm watching for a catch attempt, and there it is! In comes Dragonite. I full send the Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam will pick up the one-hit KO. They're forced to put up the final shield, and now with a 2-0 shield advantage, in comes Shadow Empoleon. I have to respect the Thunder Punch. Shadow Empoleon would get absolutely deleted, but with 2 shields to hide behind, it's not going to be a problem, and I'm able to barely outpace and make the Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to knock out the Dragonite. They bring back in the Sandslash, but Sandslash did not have a lot of residual energy. I can put up the shield, and as long as I shield a Drill Run, I'll be able to outpace them and make it to the Hydro Cannon before they're able to make Drill Run number 2. This Hydro Cannon will easily wash away the Sandslash. My opponent has to try and 1v3 with a Flygon. This is actually a Mudshot Flygon, not Sand Attack. Sand Attack, in my eyes, is preferred on Shadow Flygon. You still have pretty decent energy generation, but you have a lot more fast move pressure. I send in the Togetic, trying to reach for a Heat Wave, but my opponent's not going to let me get there. But the good news for me is that I've done so much damage already to the Flygon that now I can send in the Orthworm. Orthworm Mud Slaps down the Flygon, and we escape with the win. We pick up a pretty familiar lead in the next match, Togetic into Turtonator. But this is not like the Turtonator we saw before. This is an Ember Turtonator. I was a very big believer in Ember Turtonator in the LAIC Championship Cup Series meta, but in this meta, I do think that Incinerate is probably just a little bit better, because for matchups like these, even if my opponent lands the Overheat, I can still pretty comfortably survive. I pivot into Empoleon, they pivot into Empoleon as well, but my opponent has the non-Shadow Empoleon, and they're on Metal Sound instead of Waterfall. While Metal Sound is double resisted, it does offer my opponent better pacing compared to my Waterfall, and that's going to allow them to pressure a shield advantage out of the mid game. The good news for me is that I'm going to exit with a ton of energy on Empoleon, and in this meta, Empoleon energy is pretty universally valuable. They go for the Hydro Cannon, I get the full farm down, exiting with a ton of energy. My opponent thinks about what they're going to do, they bring in the Turtonator, and I just clicked the Hydro Cannon too late. That is a pretty colossal error by me, and that's going to cost me my final shield. My opponent now has a 2-0 shield advantage for their sweeper. They no-shield the Turtonator. In the back is a Azumarill, and this is a scenario where Orthworm is going to shine, as my opponent has no ability to switch for the remainder of the game. This means Orthworm will get to apply Rock Tomb debuff after Rock Tomb debuff after Rock Tomb debuff. This Azumarill already doesn't have a big attack stat, and that attack stat is only decreasing. They fire off the Hydro Pump, but with the debuff, that does not do a lot. Orthworm is never going to get farmed down. I'm able to make it to a second Rock Tomb. Now my opponent's forced to put up a shield, but they're at -2. These bubbles look like they're healing the Orthworm. They're forced to fire off energy and take the knockout. Ice Beam will take the KO. but I have a charge attack loaded on Empoleon that can bring in Togetic and win charge attack priority. Togetic able to make the Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam will force the final Protect Shield, and from here, I can win the game with Empoleon. So even with a pretty catastrophic error by me that probably should have cost me the game, Orthworm is just too good when your opponent can't reset debuffs. I apply back-to-back Rock Tomb debuffs, we make it to a ton of charge attacks, and somehow we escape with the win. We pick up a very nice lead in the next match, Togetic into Shadow Giratina. Shadow Giratina is going to have a pretty rough matchup into Togetic unless they're on Ancient Power. If they're on Ancient Power and they get Shield Calls right on Dazzling Gleam, then this matchup can get a little bit tricky. I'm not a big fan of shielding Togetic unless it's like an overheat from a Turtonator, so I end up no shielding as they go for the Shadow Sneak. Here, I overfarm, expecting a catch, and my opponent never goes for it. I could have just got a Dazzling Gleam for free and forced the final shield, but unfortunately, I predicted the catch, they did not go for it, and now we're at shield parity. Togetic is able to take the knockout onto Giratina. They bring in Turtonator, and I'm going to respond with the Shadow Empoleon. These waterfalls do add up, but the Incinerates are absolutely shredding through my Empoleon. My opponent's going to farm up to 80 energy. I'm going to shield the Dragon Claw here to force him to throw another Dragon Claw. They're actually on Brutal Swing on the Turtonator. They pivot out in the back. Oh my goodness, what is this? It's a Shadow Palkia. I fire off the Drill Peck. Shadow Palkia gets absolutely rocked. They barely survive the waterfall, and they're going to make a last-second Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will knock out the Empoleon, but now I can send in Togetic. I think Togetic is outside of Incinerate range, and if it is, I'm going to win the game, but it's not, and I get farmed down. And I think that just cost me the entire game. That is so unfortunate. I should have pivoted out, but I thought that I could live, and now the Turtonator gets to 2 more Brutal Swings, and we are going to lose by the narrowest of margins. Had we not let the Togetic get farmed down, Orthworm could have just farmed everything down. But unfortunately, I thought I could live the Incinerate, but Togetic just did not have enough HP remaining, and we will lose the game. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, leading Togetic into Clefable. I save switch into Shadow Empoleon, and my opponent responds with Gabite. Gabite is a very cool pick. Unfortunately, I have no idea what Gabite learns for coverage. I think it might be Dig, maybe Flamethrower. I'm going to no shield either way. My opponent goes for a Twister. Twister plus the Mud Shots barely misses the KO, and that's going to force my opponent to fire off more energy. I want to try and get shields down here or get switch advantage, because if my opponent no shields, then Orthworm will wall Clefable. Unfortunately, it's not to be. My opponent will put up the shield. I guess we'll find out what coverage move they have here as I send in the Togetic. I can't afford to shield this because I know Clefable has a Meteor Mash with my name on it. My Togetic does get a pretty monster farm down, and back in comes Clefable. Clefable will take big damage from Dazzling Gleam, and I'm going to try and go for a Meteor Mash catch. If I throw one, go for the catch, I don't get it. In the back is Shadow Flygon, and this actually seems like a pretty good spot to be in as Orthworm. I'm able to make it to the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is resisted, but the combination of Rock Tomb and Mud Slap have already put this Flygon deep into the red HP. Flygon goes for the Sand Tomb. Orthworm survives due to the Rock Tomb debuff. They're able to make a second Sand Tomb, but I can just let this go. The win con is not Orthworm. The win con is Togetic. Togetic gets the Fairy Wind down. Clefable needs the double up to win the game, and they're not gonna get there. So despite double ground into double steal, this team is just so strong. We knock out Clefable and take the win. We get the dream lead in the final match, Togetic into Flygon. My opponent safe switches into Azumarill, and I'm getting a very strange case of deja vu. I feel like I've played this team before. If this is the team that I played against in Battle 1 of this video, then it's Tinkaton in the back. Last time I ended up going Empoleon into the Azumarill, but this time I'm deciding to play it a little bit differently. My plan is actually not to win alignment with Orthworm, but rather to soft lose this matchup and go for a massive Fairy Wind down with Togetic. Because if it's the team from Battle 1, it's Tinkaton in the back, and a Togetic up energy is just going to completely sweep the Tinkaton Flygon core. So, I land Rock Tomb into Earthquake, let the play rough go, and then in comes Togetic. Togetic gets a 6 Fairy Wind head start in the back. It is the team we were expecting. It's Tinkaton. And there's great news for my Empoleon. My Empoleon can just take the battle off. I could have a 10 CP Weedle in the back, and we would still be able to win this game because there is just simply no way for my opponent to ever beat the Togetic. The Togetic is just way too far ahead in terms of energy. My opponent's only win con at this point is just to full send the Gigaton and hope for some reason I call the bait, but I'm always going to be shielding. We're so far ahead that even a double bait with 2 Bulldozers shielded would still not win them the game because Togetic's pacing is just absolutely absurd. We make the Heat Wave KOs the Tinkaton. All that's left in the back is that Shadow Flygon, and my opponent resigns the match. After trying Orthworm in yesterday's video and finding it to be a very strong Fantasy Cup Pokemon that honestly felt was let down by the team that I built for it, today feels like redemption. This team is strong, this team kept winning, and this team got me to my highest ELO of the season, 3209. I was live streaming these battles, and quite a few trainers were battling along with the same team while they were watching, and a few mentioned that they were able to rank up, whether it's hitting veteran, hitting expert with the team. So I'm a very big believer in this team. Orthworm in particular proved to be an incredibly strong Pokemon. What I really like about Orthworm is it has a lot of neutral matchups that it can kind of just overwhelm those neutral matchups with a combination of Mud Slap and Rock Tomb. I think that I maybe only clicked Earthquake one singular time in these battles, and it was in the very final battle where I ended up Earthquaking the Zoom World just to try and set up a farm down for Togetic. So I believe it does also learn either Gyro Ball or Iron Head, one of those slightly mediocre 50 energy steel moves. So considering I didn't use Earthquake a ton, I think there is an argument to be made for potentially dropping Earthquake, but I would rather have Earthquake and only barely use it than not run it and then end up needing it. So I think you could get away with not running Earthquake, but Mud Slap plus the Rock Tomb is going to be essential on Orthworm. So Pokemon that could be a little bit problematic for this team would be something like a Shadow Dragonite if it's able to get up energy. The one Dragonite that I saw ended up being down 2 shield, so Empoleon was able to deal with it, but this team doesn't have a lot of fast move pressure into a Dragon Flying type outside of the Togetic. Once you get to the back line, there's Waterfall from Empoleon, and there's Mud Slap, which is double resisted from the Orthworm. So I think that could be a little bit of a problem for this team. Altaria as well in the back. I don't think Altaria is as common currently, but if you do see Altaria, Altaria could be a bit of an issue if it ends up on the Orthworm, just because Altaria can always survive a Rock Tomb, and they outpace you when making it to the Flamethrower. So, to me, I'm very, very pleased with how today's battles went. At the start of the season, I was really frustrated by the fact that we were going to get Fantasy Cup for 2 weeks, and it was split up by several weeks. Because after playing through a week of a Cup, you don't really want to play the Cup again. However, with the addition of Orthworm as a meta-relevant Pokemon for this Fantasy Cup format, I do think that the Fantasy Cup will feel a bit different to what we had a few weeks ago, and I think that is a welcome change. That way it's not just an exact replica run back of the Cup that we had a few short weeks ago. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.